Hello and welcome back again. It's good to continue our reflections on praying the Psalms. And again, we'll have three sections to be thinking about this evening, or if it's in the afternoon, you're meeting in the afternoon, to be thinking about in the afternoon. I want to continue with the really fruitful and creative discussion that some of the groups had last week on prayer. And see if we can go a little bit further, because ultimately praying the Psalms is actually not about the Psalms. It is actually about prayer. It's about how we engage with God in a meaningful way. And actually, of course, through history, the Psalms have been a way of helping us to engage with God in a meaningful way and finding union with God. And that's what we're really trying to do as we engage with this. So this is a conversation really about prayer and not so much about Psalms, if that makes sense. And last week we looked at that question, what is the single most important thing that could make a difference to your prayer life? And certainly the groups I was involved in, we had a really good discussion about what that would look like and what difference that would make. But I can't overstate this as we find ourselves in this particular point as a parish. I can't overstate the importance of prayer. Remember last week we looked at that passage in 2 Chronicles where God says, "If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear their prayer, forgive their sin and heal their land." That's if my people will humble themselves and pray. And that's what's going to make all the difference in our 6 communities that we are engaged with here. The difference will be if we're a praying people. And that's why we need to really engage with this over Lent. And one of the Psalms that we will look at in a little while, because we're looking at what's called the Songs of Ascent. What that means is ascending up. It's the songs, the collection of songs that are usually attributed to pilgrims who are making their way up to Jerusalem, and they last from Psalm 120 right the way through to 134. But there's some particular things I want us to draw out. One of those psalms actually begins with this: "Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplication." And I noticed that I've written in the notes of my Bible this: there is a different form of deeper. When it says out of the depths, there's a different form of deeper. What I mean by this is that as Christians, we're called to go deeper with God. And as we engage and go deeper with God, something happens. It's transformative for you, for your own heart, but it's transformative on those around you, and it's transformative for your church and for community. There's a different form of going deeper. Later on in that psalm it says this: "I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in his word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning." More than those who watch for the morning. There's a different form of deeper. And it really revolves around the importance of prayer. You may also remember that in Mark chapter 9, we've had the story of the transfiguration, Jesus up on the mountain and coming down. And he comes to an argument that is going on between some religious leaders and disciples. And the man has brought his demon-possessed son, I think it is, if I remember, to be healed. And the disciples can't deliver him. They can't set him free. And they don't understand why this. And Jesus says to them at the end, after Jesus has cast out the demon, Jesus says to them at the end, "This kind cannot be driven out except by prayer." And sometimes the translation has, "and fasting." There is a different form of deeper. I remember some years ago there was a big ruckus, as there often is at Synod and all that kind of thing, General Synod. And one of the Archbishops of Canterbury was a former Archbishop of Canterbury, who was reputed to have said, all the noise is down the shallow end. And I can't remember what the particular issue was, but that is such a good analogy. I don't know about you, but if you're on the surface of the water, on the beach, it's noisy, or in a swimming pool, it's noisy. There's a lot of splashing around and so on. It's not until you get into the depths, if you take a boat offshore and further out, the noise dies down and actually the stillness comes. Or if you're swimming and you go into the depths, it's a different kind of deeper. It becomes more significant, more meaningful. And it's the same with prayer. Often the noise can be in the shallow end, but actually are you and I prepared to go deeper with God into a real union with him, where real transformation takes place? That's a costly place to be, but that's what we're thinking about when we're thinking about prayer. All the noise is down the shallow end. There's a huge truth to it. I remember Thomas Merton, who was a great contemplative, wrote these words about silence. He said this: we interfere with God's work by talking too much about ourselves and even telling him what we ought to do, advising him how to make us perfect, and listening for his voice to answer us with approval. We soon grow impatient and turn aside from the silence that disturbs us, the silence in which his work can best be done. And we invent the answer and the approval which will never come. The silence in which his work can best be done. One of the things that we find, I think many of us find most difficult, is silence. Just being still, stopping. I remember when I first went to the Taizé community, to visit the Taizé community, and silence is one of the great features of their acts of worship. So you sing some Taizé chants or choruses of whatever kind, and there's often repetition and rhythm in that. And then there's a reading of a scripture, and then there's silence. And I remember I was used to kind of 2-minute silence at remembrance, not much more than that. And I remember thinking, okay, we got silence, and after 2 minutes, it didn't look like they were going to let up. The silence went on, and then 5 minutes, and then it went on for 10 minutes. And then I was thinking, oh, I better engage with this. And then when I engaged with it, it became a wholly different experience. Actually showing God that we're serious about listening and being attentive to his voice. The silence in which his work can best be done. So what I want to do and think about is this: what would it take to honestly move into that silence? What would it take for us to do that? To move into that silence and listen attentively to God so that transformation takes place. That prayer isn't just a shopping list, or prayer isn't just a reel off a piece of liturgy, or even the Lord's Prayer, but actually prayer becomes a meaningful waiting upon God. My soul waits, out of the depths I wait for God. What would it take for that to happen in your life? I want you to have a discussion about that, and what your experience has been of silence. Some people are afraid of silence, what to deal with all the stuff that comes rushing in, and all of that. What would it take for you to go there in prayer? Let's have a discussion about that, and then we're going to look at some Psalms. Thanks.